Hi and welcome. If you are new to the court and community school setting, you have realized already that there is a really big difference between the traditional school setting and court and community schools. As a matter of fact, there are many differences, major differences between the two settings. Today, we're going to talk about at least 5 major differences between traditional schools and what you can expect going into a court and community school setting as a leader. But before we get into our content today, let me introduce myself. I'm Sabani Parcells. I have more than 25 years of educational experience with 16 years of administration, and much of that was spent in court and community schools serving as a principal. And in this channel, we talk about the leadership experience in court and community schools, what can be expected, and some ways to help you navigate through a setting that is quite different than the traditional setting. So to start, we want to talk about the first major difference, and that is that many court and community schools, and especially the court schools where you may be overseeing a juvenile hall setting, it is a year-round calendar, which means that the students are in school outside of holidays and some other small breaks. They are in school year-round, and this is maybe quite different from a setting where students are in school from August until May or June, and there are the traditional holidays and settings, but for the most part, school ends in May or June, and you have the rest of the time to plan and get ready for the upcoming year. But with court and community schools, students are, especially court schools, students are enrolled year-round, which means there is often a summer school that the administration is responsible for overseeing. There may be settings, there may be districts and places where there's a substitute administration, but for the most part, the on-site administrative team oversees summer school. So not only are students enrolled and attending year-round, but the administrator is working year-round as well. When you oversee, of course, a summer school, the teaching staff may have quite a bit different schedule or contract. So in my experience, the teaching staff had a traditional contract where they were expected to teach in the regular year between, let's say, August and June or August and May, and their contract would end after 180 or 180 plus days. In the summer, they could elect to work the summer school session, and they would get an additional contract for that. If they opted not to work in the summer, then that means that there was substitute staff. And as a principal, when you are overseeing substitute staff, it depends on if that staff is familiar with the setting, or if you've had a chance to work with that staff, or if they're coming from experience in court and community schools. It may be a challenge to have to manage people that are not used to the setting. So as an administrator, it's a good idea to keep that in mind, that you will be overseeing potential staff that have very little or no experience in the court and community schools setting over the summer. So when you think about your regular summer school or summer months of planning, taking a break, getting prepared for the next year, you may be not only overseeing the program, but also training people who are not familiar with your setting. And so you really must plan and prepare for the staff that may be coming on that is not trained to be in a court and community setting, as well as you've got to think about when do you plan for the upcoming year, because you will be overseeing the site as well as getting ready for the upcoming year. So just lots to think about when you have a year-round calendar. With substitute staff, not only do you have to think about training and getting people that are not familiar with court and community school settings used to that environment, but you also have to make sure that the quality of instruction and the academics are taking place as well, because summer school could be 6 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, it could be longer or shorter, but you also want to make sure that your students are getting the support that they need. Students come in with a lot of deficits. Students a lot of times are in high school. They need those credits towards graduation. And since you may be working with a huge percent of substitute staff, you really want to schedule in calendar in that time to walk through classrooms, to do small trainings, or to give feedback during the summer so that your program stays a quality program over the summer. I talked a little bit about July being a month where traditionally you would have time to rest and also start planning for the new year. A lot of administrators use that time to really think about the upcoming year and to think about new staffing, what professional development needs are there, think about courses and initiatives that you may want to implement in the new year. Well, if you are overseeing a summer school program, you don't really have that time to do the deep thinking and planning that you would traditionally have in July. So it's really critical to set aside time in those months to, whether you're taking a day away from the sites or a day or two, where if you have an administrative team that you work with where others are overseeing the program while you step away and do planning. If you have a shorter summer school session where maybe it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks, there may be an additional 2 to 3 to 4 months that you can really take time to really take a deep dive into your plans for the new year and get things organized and set so that you can start the new year well prepared and planned and strong. Again, if you are overseeing a program in the summer, your time management is going to be really important for planning. So you want to think about, are you a sole administrator that's overseeing your court and community school program, or do you have an assistant principal, head teachers? Do you have someone from the central or county office that helps you to take time away so that you have time to rest and you have time to plan? Really think about the supports that you have, the team that you are working with to oversee potentially several sites, even in the summertime, and utilize or lean on those individuals to ensure that you have time to plan, that you have time to step away and rest as well, very important, and so that you are able to be prepared and ready for the new year. The second big difference between the traditional school and the court and community schools is that you have revolving student enrollment, and this, quite frankly, might be the biggest difference. These different areas are not in any particular order. This is one of the big ones where you have a student population or your enrollment of students, it revolves. Students are very transient because, especially in the court schools, and I'm pointing to that because I think court schools have the biggest differences between traditional and court and community schools. but your court school students are coming in, could be every day. So if you have students that are enrolling, even over the weekend, there may be youth that come into the facility, and by the following Monday or Tuesday, those students are enrolled into the school program. So literally every day, you may have students that are coming into your school, as well as those that are being transitioned out of your program. So it's important to really keep that in mind and plan around the fact the enrollment is revolving, that it's transient. So when we think about that, you want to think about attendance and just ensuring that you have a strong attendance process. You would, of course, work like in the traditional school, you would work with your administrative assistant, or maybe you have an attendance administrator or an attendance clerk that will take care of ensuring that students who are new are enrolled properly into the program, that the rosters are updated, that your teachers and your staff know who is in the program in a particular day and who has transitioned out of the program, and that you have all of those records up to date on a daily basis, and it's done before the school day starts. So attendance is huge because, of course, that is where funding is determined, is through your attendance, and you want to make sure that those records are up to date. And because it changes potentially daily, then a strong system, an effective system, competent, well-trained staff is really important for ensuring that you have a good handle on who is coming in and who is being transitioned out on a regular basis. You also want to think about how our students coming into your school program, how are they oriented into court and community schools? When students come in, even if they've had a chance to be, in the units where they are in the living quarters or units or however your program calls it, they may have been there a day or two. They may have had a chance to settle in a bit and maybe talk with their families, talk with the medical staff there. However, it is still quite new when they arrive at school. Usually, unless there are other issues, students within a day or two are enrolled in school if they are school age or if they have not already graduated from high school. So when they come into the court and community or the court schools program, how are they oriented into your program? Best practice would be to have a process and procedures for students when they enroll, and it would be to the benefit of students, and it's also to the benefit of the school staff and the program as well, because when students come in, there's information that you need to know about them in order to be able to serve them in the most effective and appropriate way, including, for example, what their grade level is, their age, their academic needs, if they receive special education services, are they emerging language learners? All of the information that is important for providing the right support, academic support for students, can be gleaned from just taking some time to orient students. Students also need a chance to learn about the program, realize that it is a state-recognized high school or school, that it is perhaps accredited, if it is an accredited school, that there are transcripts, that the courses and credits transfer back to their traditional school depending on how long they are with you. They can do credit recovery, that there is a counselor on staff that can help with explaining transcripts and so on and so forth. So to really develop a strong orientation plan and program, you would want to work with staff members, whether it be your vice principal, your school counselor. You can work with head teachers to come up with a plan and the best way to bring students in so that they feel that they understand what is happening with their academics, and then you can also learn about the student and be prepared to really support that student while he or she is within your program. You really want to have a way to do a quick assessment of their needs, and to find out what it is that they will need to be successful in the program. And just as important as the orientation component of a student enrolling in your program is also the transition out of the program. That process is important. And so important questions to ask is, where are students going when they leave your program? Who's the contact? What is the re-enrollment process for going back to, say, their home or district schools? Is there a particular document that needs to be updated or sent with them? Is there a parent meeting that needs to happen with students so that this parents and the students and everyone is aware of when the student will go back, where they will go back, and what is needed to get them enrolled and started as quickly as possible once they are transitioned out or released out of your program. And this process also will need you and your team to really set things up so that any student that is transitioning out, there are steps depending on where the student is going to go next, what the student will need to get back and transition smoothly, where there can be very little hiccups with families getting students back in, where there's a warm handoff of students back to their home schools or to the community school. There are a group of students as well that may be graduating from your program. There are students who stay with Court and Community Schools long-term, others stay short-term. Many of the long-term students will graduate out of the program. So then the question is, do they have all of the credits and things that they need? Have there been a conversation with a counselor in terms of students that will go on to post-secondary work, college, or the trades, or maybe they will look for employment? So is there a plan for students who are graduating from school to have next steps so that they can continue with their success and have a definite plan for moving forward? The third biggest difference in the traditional school and court and community schools is that, especially court schools, the facilities are locked, and there is limited access to the entire campus. In court schools, students come into an entire system of living quarters. There's school, there's medical support, there may be a mental health office. When you are a new principal and you are going into the school department in a court school setting, say for the juvenile hall setting, or if you are going to oversee camps, or if you oversee a ranch, which is also part of the court system, then you will have limited access to the campus, which is quite different than in the traditional setting where the principal has access to basically the entire campus. If there is something that is going on after hours, then the principal will be able to lock or unlock the facility, turn on and off alarms, go basically anywhere in the campus that is needed to access that part of the campus. That is quite different in the court school setting. The probation department is in charge of the facilities. Most court schools are within a county probation facility, and there are locked areas throughout that particular campus. So The school department is open for administration and teachers to use, and there are keys and access in that area. However, outside of that small part of a juvenile hall campus, then the principal does not have access. When you are working with probation, you have to have a really good relationship and to have teamwork, because students are really under the oversight of probation, and even in the school setting, students have to be sometimes monitored when they're moved. They think a lot about how students are grouped together, and if there might be issues with one person or another, or one group of students with other young people. So there's a lot of thought and a lot of consideration for safety that goes into how students move about with each other in a juvenile hall facility. So a relationship and a partnership with the probation department is extremely important for the principal and the principal's team, so that you are able to support students in the way that you support students without violating any of the safety considerations that probation have in place. When you are thinking about the security of the facility and the limited access, it impacts the work that a school does. So again, that's why it's important for probation to be involved, because when you are scheduling meetings, for example, an IEP meeting, or if you want parents to come in for graduation ceremony, or for a parent meeting or parent night, or any of those things where you have volunteers coming to work with students to tutor or to do an art class, or anything that where others are coming in, or you need students to move from the classroom to the auditorium or some other area, it is really important that probation be involved in those conversations, because they will ultimately determine who comes into the facility, and they also will determine how students move about. So again, having probation involved in those conversations is really important. The fourth difference between the traditional leadership assignment and one where a principal or an administrator is overseeing court and community is the fact that there are several sites in multiple locations for court and community school. There are the juvenile hall, which we talk quite a bit about for court and community schools. There may be ranches, or a ranch or a camp. Those are on the court school side. There are also community schools where students who have been expelled from their home school, their district school, are attending a community school for a period of time. There are residential treatment facilities that are locked, where students that need intense mental health support and other supports may reside and also attend school. And those schools are overseen by a principal. So again, it's important to note that in the traditional setting, there's usually one site. The principal oversees that particular campus. In turn, the court and community schools principal could have 3, 4, 5 sites that they are responsible for. And when overseeing that many different places, it's important to have really good time management, which we kind of talked about before, where you are scheduling time to visit, to walk through classrooms, to get to know students, get to know the staff, know what's going on, work with the either probation department that is at the other site, or maybe there is a county mental health administration team that you need to work with. and just to know and be aware of just what's happening at your different sites. So it's important to schedule that time in. You want to also make sure that when you are walking through, students are getting quality instruction, teachers, all of their needs are being met and addressed. You may want to check in with head teachers, because when you have several sites, you want to keep in mind that there should be a head teacher or someone that understands the programs really well, maybe have had many years working in court and community schools, where the close partners per either probation or mental health can go to an individual when there's an emergency or something that needs to be addressed right away. Those folks can go to a head teacher or a program specialist or coordinator or someone who is in charge at that site until they can get you involved, or if you, if they can't reach you, if you're out or something like that, there is someone who is there that they can reach out to have questions answered, or to get a message to you, or to just handle a situation that needs to be handled right away. So it's important to check in with those staff members that have that oversight, or that pseudo oversight of that particular campus. And really, when we talk about court and community, I talked a little bit about court schools being more overseen by probation. Students are, many of them, incarcerated in the court school setting. They have a particular time that they need to serve in that setting, and it could be short term, as short as a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then it could be as much as 2 months, 4 months, 2 years. Okay, it's a locked facility many times, or it's a facility that is very far away from the community, so that it is secure in its environment, right? So that it's not necessarily, a ranch may not be a locked facility, but it is very, very far away from the community, so that it is enclosed in its own space. Many of them are working with attorneys. They're involved in the court system, and their cases may not have been adjudicated at that point, so that they are in a court school setting while they wait for going to see a judge or talking with attorneys and so on. In a community school, many students have either been expelled from school, and they are attending a school that is within their county, within their community, but it is away from the traditional high school. They come in the morning, they leave in the afternoon. There are wraparound services in both court and community where they receive mental health support. The basic needs are there, with food and medical care, a nurse, or there might be even a clinic for students to access while they are at school. So in a community school, the students are given wraparound services to support all of their needs, including their academic needs that they have. In each of these different sites, there again are programs. The programs may be quite different, so that students who are in, for example, a residential treatment facility may have a shorter school day. They have therapists and other mental health professionals that are supporting them in the classroom or on the site, so that if there's a crisis, they can access that resource in the moment. And so each program is different, and it's important for, as the administrator, to understand the different programs, what's offered, and to be able to support students and to support the sites as the administrator. And all of the sites, the academic piece will be consistent. There are supports for students who receive special education services. There are supports for students who have emergent language needs. However, the curriculum and the academic piece would be the same at each of the sites. The fifth difference between the court and community schools and traditional schools would be the major partnership presence at each of the sites. And I've talked about this in all of the other areas. In court and community schools, there are partners that help support students' progress. In the court schools, there would mainly be probation. In the residential treatment facilities, that will be the county mental health or medical staff that are there to support the student needs. And at a community school, it could be nonprofit organizations that come in periodically and bring different resources and different experiences to students. It is really important to build relationships. I've talked about this earlier in this discussion, the importance of really having a strong partnership with all of the different organizations that support court and community school students, so that everyone is on the same page, that calendars and events are coordinated, so students really receive all of the benefits of the resources that are available to them in these court and community school settings. You want everyone to be safe, so that's where probation really comes in, to make sure that staff is safe, students are safe. You want to make sure that mental health needs are being met, and that is through the county mental health or the medical staff that are really there to handle emergencies or to really support students if they are having a crisis or if they are just needing to speak with someone in the moment. And so all of those partners are there together, including the school staff, to make sure that students have a positive outcomes when they are in these programs and when they transition out, that they have made progress and that they have what they need. Your core, again, I talked about the core partners who are probation and mental health. They are usually there 24 hours a day. They're the ones that, if it's probation students, they're with students or with young people morning, noon, and night. They come to the schools at times, or they're there at the schools. They are there in the evenings when students are, having their after hours care. So they're with students all day, and the same with mental health. And so that's why it's really important, because they kind of understand what things that have happened in the evenings that might impact a student during the school day. And then the periodic partners are also important, but they are the ones that are going to come throughout the year to bring different resources, different services for students for enrichment. And there are organizations that will bring yoga to students. They will bring financial literacy or street law to students, different art experiences and things that will help students to be enriched and to grow. And so it's important for both core partnerships and periodic partnerships, and build those really critical and strong relationships with each of those entities. So this is going to conclude the discussion about differences between the traditional school setting and court and community school settings. And if we recap, we said that there is a year-round calendar for court and community school students. They a lot of times will attend summer school, so we have to plan for that. We said that number two, there's a transient student population in court and community schools. They can be there as little as a few days or a week, or as much as a couple of years in a particular setting. And number three, we talked about the limited access to campuses, especially the court school campuses where facilities are locked and an administrator or school staff cannot freely go through the entire campus. We talked about multiple sites and multiple responsibilities for the administrator, and the administrator really has to be strategic about overseeing all of those facilities. And finally, there are community partnerships that are present in court and community schools, and it's important to build good relationships with both the core partners as well as the periodic partners. So I hope that this information was helpful to you. Please, if you